Film Club.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison, and with me, as always, it's Andy Donaldson.
Hello.
Every week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us, and this week, we're taking a look at Rope.
Alfred Hitchcock, and it's a story set in one apartment. It's a dinner party happening, but prior to the dinner party, two friends decide to murder their other friend. Now, what goes on is they try and set up the perfect murder, one that won't be sussed out, but they do get sussed out because they invite the infamous James Stewart, who plays Rupert Goodell. And so what goes on is like kind of a story of tension. It's really cool. This is the only second Hitchcock film I've seen. I do like this more than Rear Window. I really love this, actually, in fact. And you said before we did this film, I hope you like it. Well played, Andy. I did. But what I want to go on about, there's many things we can go on about this film, obviously. Like I say the gimmick. It's not really a gimmick. It's a gimmick more so nowadays. But the thing in this film is it was all one long take with cuts in between. But what I do want to say first, before we move on to the other stuff, is I really enjoy how it puts you in the frame of the killers. This film sets you up, instead of wondering who it is, you go on about like a Poirot kind of film, like who did it? In this case, you know who did it, and you're like seeing them trying to get away with it.
I'm really glad that you enjoyed this, because this is actually one of my absolute favourite Hitchcock films. I think that he's got films that are definitely better narratively. I think he's definitely got films that, are better in a technical capacity, and he's got films that are better in terms of tension. This is 1948.
Yeah, it's insane.
He's doing these super long takes, and a lot of them only ever cut because they have to, because you've got this 10-minute limitation on the camera. The cameras at the time,
which is brilliant, by the way.
Yeah, they could only hold 10 minutes worth of reel in them. So what you would do is he'd have these long sort of 10-minute takes, and then he'd only cut really because he had to.
I also read, I obviously there's cuts in between that how he does it quite creatively, but I also interestingly read that one of the latter cuts of the film, he just doesn't, he doesn't try and hide it, because that's when the projected person would have to change reels themselves. So it's quite cool he foresaw the theatre experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the 20-minute mark. It's a perfect time to do it. The film, obviously, it's an adaptation of a play from a guy called Patrick Hamilton. And
you can tell that. You can tell.
It really does. I think we did a film a couple of weeks ago.
The Man from Earth.
We did The Man from Earth. Same sort of bottle feeling of all being set in one location. The entire film ends up being this big tension build. Because you never cut, because we never leave the room, and because we know the secret at the very beginning, the whole film becomes a tension build. Do you know what it reminds me of? Do you remember the car sequence in Touch of Evil, where you have the bomb planted in the back of the car, and the whole way through that scene, while you're watching that car drive down the road, in the back of your head you're thinking, when's it going to blow, when's it going to blow, when's it going to blow? That's what this entire film is. This entire film is, when are they going to look inside of that chest and see that body?
Which is interesting, because I've not seen Touch of Evil, so I feel like I need to watch that now after watching this. But how the fuck have they managed to go between the walls with the camera, and then you've got the backdrop of the night city backdrop, the skyline, which is brilliant, by the way. The way that's lit and the way it moves on and has a different backdrop. There's one that cuts where he goes out to say bye to the housekeeper, comes back, and it's like a darker sky. Yes, the sunset, went a bit quicker than expected, but it doesn't matter. It's brilliant how they managed to do that so quickly.
It's this one big dance. We
really
discussed when we did 12 Angry Men, we were talking about the idea of sustaining interest while you're just locked in one room for an entire film. This is sustaining interest, but also choreographing this big dance that is a movement of blocking, it's characters, it's a movement of camera, and it's also, like you were saying, a movement of crew. When someone moves out of the way of something, or when a camera has to track into something, crew members have to get in there and wheel out some of that set dressing and wheel it back in at the appropriate times. Obviously, all that's got to be done silently as well, because like you said, they are recording on set.
Exactly. It's madness. And I would like to say that the experiment worked. I commend Hitchcock for what he actually did himself.
By what right did you dare decide that boy in there was inferior and therefore could be killed? Did you think you were God, Brandon? Is that what you thought when you choked the life out of him? Is that what you thought when you served food from his grave? Well, I don't know what you thought or what you are, but I know what you've done. You've murdered!
This wants us to see James Stewart's go forward even more. I mean, I've seen him before. It's a Wonderful Life, obviously, Rear Window. He's a great presence on screen. So when he's like deducing what's going to happen and what's gone on, and he's seen these little bits here and there, it makes you, as you said, the tension builds up. It makes you want them to lose. It makes you want James Stewart to find out what it is, and the way he does it, the way he delivers it, and like I said, the chemistry between everyone there. You've got John Dahl as Brandon, and you've also got Philip, who is played by Farley Granger. I also like how every character is drawn to David. You got the dad, you got the fiance who's related to his old best friend who she used to go out with. It's all tied together to make these connections real and to make them have a reason to be there at the party, to make them really wonder where David is and build up that tension. And the pacing is my favourite thing about this film.
The whole film takes place in real time, but also the moments are purposefully compressed so that they don't like take too long. The idea of everybody sitting down for like a dinner party could be lengthy. That can take hours and hours and hours to go through a real dinner party. So instead, we sort of have this waving of forgiveness where we all go along with the fact that the dinner party only lasts 30 minutes. And what that helps is the pacing of the film. And you mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, but the cast in here do an incredible job. And for me, the best one, I think, is Jimmy Stewart. I think that he's a brilliant actor in almost everything that he's in. But I don't know if you read about this, but he actually didn't really enjoy making this film.
Probably a different experience for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, so he was very much an actor's actor. And being forced to work around the camera and being forced to work around the crew was difficult for him. And I don't think he really was that fond of the final product. I think there's one point where he said in an interview, he felt like he had been miscast by Hitchcock. And while I can sort of see it a little bit, I think that he does such a good job in molding that character into someone who is both an intellectual, but also a little creepy, and has probably gone a bit too far with his own
philosophy.
Yeah, or his own indulgence in that philosophy. Because there's a point at which
they're very self-indulgent, all of them.
Yeah, Brandon says to him, often you choose words that sound good rather than they actually represent what you mean. And I think clearly that's what's led Brandon down this route of extremism.
It's brilliant to see how he retracts his words towards the end of the film when he finds out what's happened. He's like, you were mutilated by words, but there's also that kind of realism that he himself went too far. And he was like, I hold my hands up. I was wrong to kind of give you these ideas, but it's obvious that your ideas are mutated. Your mind is sick with this extremism that you hold.
There's nothing quite like ending a film with a James Stewart monologue. A couple of things worth noting. This is one of the 5 missing Hitchcock films, which actually we forgot to mention when we were doing Rear Window. It's also Hitchcock's very first colour film. It's the first film he ever did in colour.
I mean, there you go. There's another thing that he's done. His first colour film. He's experimenting. Madness.
And one other thing, this was also weirdly banned in a couple of American cities when it first came out, just because of its homosexual undertones between Brandon and Philip.
Yeah, I didn't really get that. I know this is old school, but it's a shame that it got hindered from being shown because of those potential themes. But
yeah, definitely. But I mean, the coolest thing now is that again, put it back to this is 1948. How cool is that to have 1948 when homophobic troubles are everywhere? And in 1948, he's making a film that has 2 characters that are front and central, and the film isn't about them being gay; they just happen to be.
That's a very, very good way of seeing it. I like that. I like that perspective. Yeah.
So there is Rope. You can let us know what you thought of Rope down in the comments below. But Andy and I are going to be back once again next week, where we're going to take a look at The Shining.
We're finally doing it.
So until then, get watching.